Today we're doing a tutorial on several sections in the Concerto in D minor by Vivaldi from Suzuki Book 4. Welcome back. Welcome to the studio. My name is Cassie and I'm a professional violist and teaching artist. So today we're going to do a bunch of tutorials on, there's so much in this piece to go over. So the first section I want to go over is measure 15. Now this is in treble clef. If you're unfamiliar with how to read treble clef, I'm going to post a link below in the comments, so check that out if you need a little bit of help. So let's go to playing position. And here we're starting in third position. So let's again tap our third finger on the D string, and then we're going to match that with our first finger to find third position. Let's just double check that. If it matches your open G string, you're good. Now I'm going to set my second finger a whole step above that, and that's my first note. That's the pickup to measure 15. So I'm going to do that pickup on an up bow. My next note is a 3 on the A string, touching that 2, so they're a half step across the string. I'm going to leave that 3 set, and then my first finger is going to be on the D string. So that's all third position. Now you'll notice on the next measure there's a 3 indicated, which means that we have to shift a half step down to second position, and the next 2 measures will be in second position. So what we're going to do is practice a couple times going from that third finger F to the third finger E. And again, it's a half step shift. It's kind of like Jaws, if it was like a really tiny baby shark in reverse, right? Now once that's comfortable for you, we're going to put it back into context. So I'm going to start in measure 16 on the 16th notes. And do my shift. Now in this next measure where our 16th notes are, before our 1, when we were in third position, felt pretty close to where our 3 was. Here we're going to have to reach really far backwards to get that F, which is what our first finger is, in tune. So my third finger again is on E. I have to reach back for that F. Let's do that whole sequence again. We're going to do the pick up to 15, so find third position again. Your second finger's on A. Check that with your open A. They match, you're in the right spot. So we're doing our pickup, then a half step, cross 1, half step shift, reach 1 backwards. Freeze, next measure, we also have a 3 indicated, which means we're going to shift backwards again. This time it's a whole step, so the distance from E, third finger, to D, third finger, is a whole step. It's going to feel wider. But we're back in first position, which is a little bit more familiar territory. So the same thing applies when you're shifting from third finger E to third finger D. Just isolate that shift, practice it a couple of times, and then when it's comfortable, put it back into context. The next measure I want to talk about, this is a new technique for us. It's called a finger replacement shift, and we're going to find this in measure 28. So let's go to playing position. And again, in measure 28, I'm in treble clef. So this is third finger on the A string in third position. So we're going to start with that 3. And you'll notice on the next note, there's a 2 indicated. So where my 3 is, I have to replace that with my 2. We're going to isolate that shift a couple of times and just practice it. So find your 3. Then shift up with your 2. And the notes, the pitches should match. If they match, you know you're in the right spot. Let's try that again. Find your 3. Finger replace with 2. Shift back to third position. See, I missed that. That's okay. That's why we practice. Replace that with your 2. Now our next note is going to be a whole step above on the note G. And then the last note is an A. Now you can use your harmonic, which we'll get to a little bit later in the piece, or you can have your finger pressed down into the string and make a solid pitch there. It's your choice. So let's actually do that sequence a couple of times. So we're going to start with our third finger in third position, finger replaced with a 2, whole step, whole step. Good. Find third position again, replace. And again, the notes when you're in third position are F, F, G, A. If it's hard to hear up there, it is pretty high. You can also play that back in first position. So I'm going to be on the D string. Once I get those pitches in my ear, I can do it up higher in that higher octave in third position. So hopefully both of those techniques will help you solidify that measure there. This does happen later in the piece, and it's the same thing. It's the same F, and then we replace that with a 2, 2, 3, 4. It actually happens a couple times in the piece. Our next spot is around measure 40. You might notice that there's a bracket above 2 of your notes, and what that indicates to us is that we have to have the same finger put on 2 different strings. So for instance, in measure 40, you'll see a bracket over this 3rd finger and this 3rd finger. So that means I don't have time to hop between strings, so I have to bar those strings, or put my finger, I'm going to imagine that there's a string running in between the D string and the G string, and I'm going to aim for that. So let's try that. We're going to play 4 notes, and if you notice that your finger's only on one string, you didn't plan ahead. You have to bar both of those notes. So your finger, after you do 2, 1, 0, 3, has to aim for both of the strings. So let's try that again with the goal of aiming for the D string. Now, if you've got a very thin finger and you're having trouble covering both of those strings, you might need to use your elbow to swing. So when I'm on the A string, to get to the D string, my elbow swings in towards my belly button. Swing, and you might need to swing it even further in to cover that 3rd finger on the G string. So if you're having trouble barring, you might need to add that elbow swing in. Now this happens a couple of times in this section, so you notice later on, like 2 measures in the future, we've got our 2nd finger barred. It's the same idea. You've just got to take your 2nd finger and cover both of those strings. The next measure I want to cover is measure 49. You'll notice here that we've got a trill and a shift to that trill. So we're going to actually shift to the note A. This is a Baroque piece, and we're going to start our trills from the note above the note that's indicated. So the note that's indicated is G sharp. We're going to start our trill from A. So I start in 1st position. I have to shift on the D string to 3rd position to A. And it's really convenient because we just played an A, so we can match those pitches. Let's try it. Freeze, shift, and match that A. Do that 2 more times. Shift. Last time. Shift. Now I want you to notice I'm saying shift on the open A. I don't need to hang out in 1st position while I play an open string. I have a shift coming out, so I have to be prepared for that. If I wait, I'm going to be hurried, and it's just going to be a big old mess there. So while you're playing that open A, shift up, kind of secretively, and find that A on the D string. Shift. And again, you'll notice that I started my trill from A and not G sharp. We want that appoggiatura. Appoggiatura is just a fancy Italian word. It actually means to lean, and when we start our trill from that A, the A is kind of leaning on the G sharp, and it's causing dissonance for just a brief second. My next section is in measure 55. You'll notice that there's 2 Italian words here indicated, dolce e lusignano. Dolce means sweet, and lusignano kind of means like alluring. So the way that I interpret that is that I want to play this as legato or smooth as possible. And the notes that have the marcato over them, I'm going to add a little bit of extra vibrato on those. So we want to be as smooth as possible here, and it's also indicated piano, so I'm going to stay towards the tip of the bow. And just kind of make everything really as smooth and connected as possible. The next section I want to talk about is in measure 71. There's another fancy Italian term here, and there's some string crossings that we should cover. So the Italian term here, leggero, just means lightly. So again, we're going to be at the tip of the bow. We're in treble clef 3rd position here. So let's just play the pickup to 71. Finger replacement, shift again. Now I've got a 2 indicated on that 3rd A of the measure, which means that I'm going to cross between my open A and that 2nd finger A on the D string. Now this is indicated a measure later as well. It's the same exact thing there. So I'm going to start that pickup again. Finger replace, open A, 2nd finger A in 3rd position, back to open A, and then this repeats. Finger replace, finger on the D string, open A. Now here's my next spot. I've got a 0 and a 4 indicated. So that means harmonic. On the D string, I'm going to go where my palm touches the upper bow, and I'm going to drop my 4th finger on top of the string. I'm not going to push into the string, so I'm barely touching. So you should get a note that kind of sounds like a whistle, or it's got a ghostly sound to it. You may have to go fishing around for it a little bit. When you find the note that rings really true, that's where your harmonic is. So anytime you see a 4 and a 0 indicated, that in string playing means that it's a harmonic. We have harmonics all over our strings. We've got them always in the same place. So wherever your palm touches, you drop your 4th finger on any string. And you've got a harmonic. We've got harmonics in first position. All over our instrument. So this just happens to be where your palm touches on the D string, plop your 4th finger. And again, we're not pushing into the string. You're touching it as lightly as humanly possible to get that harmonic to sound. So this actually brings me to the next section I wanted to talk about, which is measure 75. We've got a slew of 16th notes here and a lot of string crossings. So I'm going to start with that harmonic and just practice going between that D and my 1st finger D on the C string. So what needs to happen? Basically, my hand needs to shift and my elbow needs to lift. So let's coordinate those motions. We're going to shift and lift at the same time. Shift, lift. Now notice I'm stopping to make sure everything is set before I proceed with that note. We don't want to have the left hand beat the right hand or vice versa, because it becomes a little bit of a mess. So to coordinate that, I'm going to practice slowly, shift, lift, and I'm not going to move my bow until I'm sure that my finger is set. So after you've got that big string crossing there, we're going to practice this a couple of different ways. So we're going to do that string crossing, and I'm only going to play the notes on one string now. So the notes on the C string are. Then I have to stop, transfer my elbow and my finger to the G string, lift back up to the C string, G string, D string, lift, G string, D string, A string. So again, we're only playing the notes on one string and we're stopping in between them. Let's try that again. So find your harmonic, shift, lift, play only the notes on the C string, G string, C string, G, D, G, D, A string. Same idea here. Lift that elbow up nice and tall. Only the notes on the C string. G string. So the first time you play this, it might be a little bit confusing. Always go slow first. We can speed it up later. And the goal eventually will be speed, but for right now it's coordination. We're coordinating what our bow needs to do and what our left hand needs to do. The other way you can practice that is we're going to not do the stops in between, but I am going to say elbow in between so that my bow elbow is reminded that it needs to go to the new string level. For instance, elbow, 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 elbow. You can see it's a lot of motion for your elbow, right? Almost every other note I have to change strings. So the slower you can do this and the more robotic your elbow can feel, it's either lifting or dropping to bring you to the new string level, the faster this will get coordinated. Another way you can practice this is by taking out the slurs. So I'm going to go slowly still. No slurs. Now notice I'm not practicing this whole passage. I want to do little snippets, get those snippets good, and then move on to the next snippet, and then plug those two snippets together. So you can practice that separate bows. You can practice it with odd, even rhythm, still not slurred. Set the coming finger. 2, open, 4, 2, 2. So that was short, long. Always set that coming finger. Now we're going to flip that rhythm around and do long, short. So the first note's long, short. Set, 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 set. one again, long, short. Ready? Go. Set. The most common mistake I see students making is that they're waiting to set their finger. As soon as your bow stops, whether it's short, long, or long, short, your finger needs to set. So we're practicing again the coordination of this passage, which is quite tricky. The last section I want to go over is measure 109. This is a technique called Bariolage. Now it may look really confusing on the page, so let me clarify it a little bit for you. Starting there, we're going to be all on the A string. Now the reason it's indicated this way is because a few measures later we are going to be crossing strings, but right now all of our notes are on the A string. So that first measure where we have the C sharp, we're in treble clef again. So basically, after every note with a stem down, you're going to play an A. Now we're going to do measure 111. We're in third position. Then the next note is indicated with a 0, which is open A. Then the next one's a 2. We've seen this before. I'm just going to cross over to the D string and play second finger A on the D string. Same thing here. Open A, second finger A. Next measure, E is second finger, open A, second finger on the D string A. Same thing, 2, open, 2, open. Same thing here, low 3, cross that 2, 3, cross 2, 4, cross 2, 4, cross 2. And you already know this next note, it's a circle with a 4, it's a harmonic, so where your palm touches, drop your 4, and you want that nice ghostly sound. So when this gets going faster, it's actually really fun. So I'm going to start in measure 109, all A string, start crossing. So it gets really fun when we get to do those string crossings. And again, the fancy Italian word is Bariolage. So that covers our tutorial. I hope this was helpful. If there's a spot in this that you're struggling with that I didn't cover, could you please post that in the comments? I really do enjoy reading those and trying to help from afar. And I can definitely make more videos on this if you're struggling with a particular section. Happy practicing.